Hi everyone, I'm Sandie La Nae. Welcome to Psychic Creations. We have a very, very interesting show for you today as we will be discussing the unique perspective of word usage. Please welcome to Psychic Creations our awesome guest, Mark Sardari. Hi!
Hi, Sandy.
It's nice to have you on the show.
Very nice to be here. Thank you.
What an honor. Now, I know our viewers are as intrigued as I am about the subject for today's interview, which is titled Bringing Back the Light in English Language. Isn't that interesting? All right, you're all ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. All right. Well, now, as you have mentioned to me, as a personal interest and an intellectual hobby, you have studied word usages in many, many venues. What would they be?
Well, I've been interested in words and language from a very early age. I started reading early, and as I got older, I did writing, more reading. I did editing for books. I actually worked at and managed a bookstore for quite a few years, so I had access to a lot of books there as well. So, and I've been speaking English for many years.
No, well, it's a good thing,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I don't know where to go on from there.
I kind of stopped you there.
That's all right.
And you were a librarian over the course, and like you said, managed bookstores for over 7 years.
I did, yes. The librarian, actually, before they changed the title to media specialist,
Oh.
when it was mostly just books, magazines, things like that. The English language has just always fascinated me. I started learning at a very, very young age, and the way that people discuss things, the way that people talk has just, I use the word over and over, and I hope it's not terribly redundant. It's just fascinating to me. At one point in time, I'll just throw this in here, but I got in trouble. My stepfather, he wanted to punish me, so he made me read the dictionary. And yeah, and unfortunately I got maybe to AD, I think, and it started getting interesting, and so I just kept going. And so when I was 9 years old, and so I read the dictionary cover to cover. It was one of the larger ones. It was an encyclopedic dictionary. It wasn't just a normal dictionary. So I just read the silly thing from cover to cover, and I probably don't remember most of the words, but that was one of my real educations to the English language, and it's been an amazing journey.
Well, it sure sounds like that.
Yeah.
Goodness sakes, as a punishment, turned out to be maybe a fun afternoon or something.
It was more than one afternoon,
Oh.
because I actually had to read the definitions, of course. I wasn't just...
Okay.
Yes.
Wasn't just picking out all the words.
Right,
down
no,
the- Isn't that funny? All right. Well, let's see. I have heard Mark speak for about 10 years now, and he always talks very eloquently, and he uses big words too. Now, do you regularly speak as what and how you read?
No, actually. I had read somewhere many, many years ago that when you're actually speaking to someone and you're communicating with them, you actually need to speak and communicate in a method that makes sense to them. Just like when you're speaking, to a computer, you actually have to do it in, one of the computer codes, binary, or one of those.
Sure.
When you're speaking to people, an individual's comprehension level is radically different from person to person, especially if it's a specialty topic or technical or something. So you have to, if you want to actually communicate effectively, you have to very specifically change, modulate, target the words that you're using, the phrases that you use, so that the receiving audience actually understands what you're talking about. So
That's a good point.
when I'm speaking of more intellectual things, I do tend to use bigger words, more syllables.
Right.
But there are definitely times where I have to bring it down a couple of steps to make sure that if I'm speaking to somebody that I'm not just making noise, you know, that they actually are comprehending what I'm saying. And it's not that people are in any way, you know, dumb or ignorant, or, you know, there's plenty of words out there that are, you know, 17 letters, and a person may not know that word, but if you tell them what that word means, they'll understand exactly what you're talking about.
Sure.
So you do have to change depending on what you're speaking about, who you're speaking to. You really do have to change how you say it, what you say, and when you say. So a lot of times that's actually part of my initial introduction when I'm speaking to someone, is finding out what on average their verbal or communication background is, so that I don't accidentally use a word that they've never heard of, but they know what it means.
Sure.
So I try to change from conversation to conversation.
Right. And that's including like public speaking, lectures,
Yeah.
a small crowd, or just a one-on-one.
Definitely. It's pretty much all of them. I have kind of made it my personal goal to communicate with people so that they actually understand what I'm saying. There's few things worse than when you're deliberately taking the time and energy to talk to someone, and you know they don't understand what you're saying. That's you know, communication really is it's an interactive thing. So if you, the communicator, are not making the effort to make yourself understood, then it doesn't matter how hard the recipient tries to understand, they're going to have difficulties, and it makes it less likely that they're even going to be interested in what you've got to say, no matter what it is that you've got to say.
Isn't that a good point? You have to communicate while you're speaking.
Yes.
Or you have to just communicate and speak, or are they different?
Well, they're actually radically different. Communication is essentially the passing on or sharing of information,
Okay.
whatever that information might happen to be.
Sure.
One of the things that I've said before is that a lot of people, the reason that they're misunderstood is because they're not communicating their languaging. They're using the English language, and they're speaking the English language, so the assumption is that anyone hearing them will understand what they're intending to say.
Okay.
My mother always said, you know, say what you mean and mean what you say.
Good advice.
Which is something I've really tried to live by, actually. If I say something, I personally want to make sure that whoever hears it hears what I'm actually trying to say.
Right.
It's a significant pet peeve of mine, actually, is when I will say something and they'll say, oh, I know what you're talking about. And I'll think to myself, no, I'm fairly certain that you don't. I just said something very negative and you just laughed.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, I just like I did. No.
Yeah, so language use needs to be kind of targeted, is what I've always said. It needs to be used in a fashion that you're actually communicating, that you're not just making appropriate noises. Like I always tell people, when it comes to reading, a lot of people can read, but they don't necessarily understand what it is that they're reading. That's why they test in school for reading and reading comprehension. Well, spoken language is exactly the same. You may understand the words, but if you don't put them together in a specific fashion, then you've lost what it was that was just communicated to you. And then all of a sudden you have this difficulty, and you're both speaking exactly the same language, and neither of you actually has a clue what the other person was really meaning. So you definitely have to, you know, pay a little time and pay a little attention. Kind of like the book series in the 90s, The Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's about communication styles. You know, you have to be very specific about what information you're trying to get across. If you use your words and expect everybody to understand you, it's not gonna work out too well, unfortunately. Yeah, no matter how earnest you want to be, and how much it means to you, if you don't use words and phrases in a way that other people know what you mean, then they're just not going to get the point. And it makes it very difficult, and that's why speechwriters are very highly paid people, because they try to use words that their audience will understand without miscommunications or any other crazy business like that. So,
well, communications is really kind of a gosh, what would be a good word?
Difficult?
Difficult is a
Yes.
very good word. Yes.
Sometimes it's actually tiresome and tedious. A lot of times, it's just not worth people's time and energy. They just kind of throw it out there, like when you're driving, a car, you just throw it out there and hope there's no accidents or collisions. But a lot of times that's actually why, they, like all the self-help gurus, they'll just go on and on. Communication is key. Communication is key.
Sure,
That's why it's like I said, it's communicating is the point, not languaging.
Languaging, I like that. Communicating, not languaging.
Yeah.
That's an interesting, very, very interesting point. Now, if you could you explain to our audience, and to me too, about the title for your show, Bring Back the Light in English Language? What does that entail?
Well, it's a rather broad title for a very specific thing. In general, bringing back the light is my way of throwing it out there to the world. English language changes over time. All languages change over time. That's kind of a normal thing. Everything changes over time. If it lives, if it's a part of life, if it grows, it changes.
True.
Well, there are many words and phrases that at one point in time in the past had a specific meaning, but over time, because of usage and social changes and whatever, it has altered itself. There are many things that had a positive or a neutral meaning at one point in time, and now there's something that is not positive or neutral, and it's interpreted, when you even hear some words, they're interpreted as being negative or hurtful or mean or something like that.
Okay.
And I've always found that to be difficult because there are words and phrases that you can't get around using unless you want to just come up with something completely random and new. You can't get around using those words, but you, as an intellectual person, I can't use those words without people automatically associating those words with negative things. I'm not trying to discuss negative things, I'm just trying to discuss things.
Okay, sure.
As they are, as they could be. And there's the automatic and negative association, and that's triflesome to me, actually.
Sure.
So what I've always tried to do in the course of communication is bring back the light to these words and phrases and things that were positive at one point in time, and then they've been sullied, which is made dirty, made bad, made something negative. The great example that actually really struck me a lot when I was growing up deals with religion and spirituality, the occult, psychic things. There was so much controversy just in the words. What do these words mean? I heard the word psychic when I was growing up. What does that word mean? Well, just as a great example, psychic literally means somebody with mind. That's it, with mind.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Not a brain, not a brain,
Okay.
but a functioning, moving, cogitating mind. Like the word mind with capital M. Not brain, but mind.
Okay.
That's what psychic means. Actually, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The way it's used nowadays, of course, is nothing like that. There's this whole laundry list of what does psychic mean.
Yeah.
And most of them, although they do all connect to, mental powers.
Okay, sure.
They all have a completely radically different meaning.
Okay.
So for the most part, psychic is kind of it's gotten better, but it's kind of a dirty word. There's so many weird and strange and ambiguous, crazy, almost negative associations that it doesn't really mean what it originally started out as mind. So bringing back the light...
Isn't that interesting? Wow, yeah.
Bringing back the light is reminding people where the root of the word came from to help start moving things away from all the constant barrage of negative associations that are attached to words and phrases that are just words.
Interesting.
See, it's the difference between communicating and languaging is I'm trying to communicate about a word. They're hearing language use, which indicates a whole different set and a whole different spectrum of emotional and thoughtful and lack of thought reactions.
Right.
So bring back the light is let these things that are just there, a part of life, a part of language, let them be a little more neutral, and have the individual decide, whether it's something that could be positive or negative, depending on its association.
Right.
There's a phrase that's been thrown out over the years. One of them is called hot button words or buzzwords.
Oh, okay.
And there are things that people, if they hear a certain word or they hear a certain phrase, there's an automatic emotional, visceral, physical reaction to that word. It's automatically negative.
Oh.
Or it's automatically positive.
Okay.
A lot of those words developed that reaction through usage, through television and commercials and through interpersonal interactions. A really good one that's really popular nowadays, you say ghost. Most people don't think about just the entity. They think about scary, they think about spooky, they think about fun, they think about dead people, they think about dead people movies. There's this whole mess that just instantly just goes into their brain. They're not thinking about the word at all. They're not thinking about how it, came through the Germanic language, that it's, similar to a lot of different other words, as a matter of fact, but they're not thinking about the word at all.
Okay. I see.
They've lost the reason for communicating. I did not in any way indicate any of those things that a person would feel when I use the word ghost.
Okay, sure.
I didn't indicate any of those things, and so they kind of like have to wait, but they're already kind of poised and on edge. Okay, what about ghosts? What about them? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Are you scared of them? Are you friends with them? Do you know dead people? Do you see dead people? There's this mess.
Yeah, true.
There's this mess that goes through everybody's head, and all I have to do is say the word ghost.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, sure.
The paranormal itself, it just as an example, that word was always a rough one. I grew up in the late 70s and 80s, and that word was everywhere.
Paranormal. The word paranormal.
The word paranormal was everywhere. And so, of course, I was interested too. What is this word?
Right.
And essentially, it just means stuff that hasn't been explained yet.
That's what
essentially
paranormal means.
Yes. It's not quite the same as the fancy science word anomalous or anomaly or, some of the other phrases like that. Paranormal, that one entered the scene in the early 20th century.
Okay.
1905, 1910. There's not too many references of it, but essentially it means things that are of the normal world but are not quite the same. They're above the normal world, or they're to the side of the normal world, or there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But in the 70s especially, there was a lot of developments for understanding psychic phenomena and psychic ability. And that was the main reason that paranormal got involved, because it is normal things, i.e. a person, and we're back to the word psychic again, psyche meaning mind, mind powers.
Right.
A lot of people that grew up during that era, they heard all about the ESPs, and the sixth senses, and there's actually a lot more than six natural senses. There's many more than that actually, but the sixth got targeted because there's 5 normal senses.
Oh,
and then there's the paranormal sixth sense. That's where the para comes in, as in maybe more, maybe. But that one people got really obsessed actually with the whole term paranormal. The paranormal field actually covers many more things. That this is another one of those bring back the light topics. Is paranormal automatically brings up the idea of ghosts first, psychics, maybe for some other people, maybe it's some some demon stuff or some other crazy business. However, back when, paranormal covered anything that possibly was part of the natural world, just not exactly the same. Paranormal also covers, on top of psychic ability, it covers ghosts, it covers UFOs, and it covers what they're calling cryptids, or cryptozoology, which is natural animals that have kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit. Most people have, a lot of people have never even really heard of the term cryptozoology.
Yeah,
but
I haven't.
a cryptozoologist is somebody that is looking for Bigfoot, or Loch Ness Monster, or the Jersey Devil, or Chupacabra. natural creatures that are part of the natural world, whether they're completely natural, whether they're, mutants, or whether they're, evolutionary missing links, that falls under cryptids and cryptozoology, which is recently fallen away from the term paranormal because paranormal has been filled up with the psychic and ghost stuff.
Exactly, sure.
Right? People don't hear the word paranormal without thinking about those things anymore. Originally, it was a more or less scientific term saying that there's a whole lot more going on in the world, we should research these things.
How interesting.
Now it doesn't mean that anymore. Just literally in my lifetime, in the last 40 years, paranormal is hardly a scientific term at all, and it's used almost completely to describe the world relating to ghosts and psychic phenomena, which isn't a bad thing, because the paranormal field is actually rather extensive, but in a way, like I said, this describes why it isn't always a good thing that evolution is allowed its own space when it comes to language use. I've always tried to help politely and impolitely, continue to educate people on what is actually going on. Not because I'm trying to resist change, but some changes I don't think really are very helpful or useful. Some things really truly are negative over time. Now, in a way, it's a little kind of crazy and obsessive that it matters so much that people are using paranormal differently than they used to. I don't actually have a problem with things changing over time, especially word usage and language. But when the words themselves become more important in how people behave and react than the language that they're using to communicate, you've lost a whole avenue of open communication. You can no longer openly communicate about those things. You actually have to deal with all of the crazy business that goes on in people's heads when they're dealing with those hot button or, tricky subject. Like when they say when you're meeting people or you're in a specific kind of function, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics. Well, now you don't talk about the paranormal. You can no longer openly discuss these things because people are so emotionally charged that you even throw out specific words and all of a sudden you got a fight on your hands and you can't talk about them anymore. That, I think, is very bad. Hence the phrase, bring back the light.
Interesting. Okay.
And there are plenty of other words and phrases. They don't have to be dealing with anything else. Another one that was really, really messy actually for quite a long time was the word occult. Occult was a horrible thing. It implies, black magic and the W word and those women, which is another thing, fortunately, that has changed over time. That one is bringing back the light. It's socially, if you say I'm a Wiccan or you say I'm a witch, people don't automatically grab the pitchforks and the burning torches. That one has been brought back a little to the light. As they deal with people on an individual level, the word has been peeled away from some of its negative connotations. And I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of bad things associated with many of these things, but the word has finally started losing some of its negative values, so you can deal with communicating again and then decide after the fact rather than hearing the word and freaking out one way or another, positive or negative. But the occult, it's such a simple word. It means obscured or hidden. That is what occult means.
Obscure or hidden.
Obscured or hidden. Quite literally, here's a great example, is you've got your paper here, okay, and the audience can see it. I have just occulted your paper. There's something in the way, and so you can no longer see the paper. That is what occult actually means.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, quite literally, that's what it actually means. But over many, many years, people, when things are hidden from them, or it's not out in the open, it's not shared, they have a natural aversion and fear. They have a fear of secrets. Even that's a hot button word right there. You say the word secret and people are like, oh, what? No, I don't like that. What is it? Tell me. Secrets are bad.
Yes.
So anything occulted or anything occult, secrets, hidden, is bad. And then over time, especially with the many and ugly and dark periods in human history, yesterday too, if it's something that's not shared in the light of general public, then it's probably bad. If it's not available
true.
for everyone,
Yeah.
then it's probably bad or dangerous. And the occult is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
When originally what it was meant is that it is not out there for everyone to see, but if you look for it,
Mm-hmm.
you will find it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That is why it was hidden. It's not actually kept secret, blocked. Those are entirely different things. That's why they call them secret societies. They don't call them occult societies, they call them secret societies. Different thing.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. Very interesting.
Anyways, that's and the English language is actually full of really odd and random things that have actually changed over time. One of the ones that I actually love the most personally is the word nice. Nice. It's not super positive, nice. It's just nice. But
Okay.
it's nice. Way back when,
Uh-huh.
many hundreds of years ago, nice meant boring. It meant plain. It meant unwise and ignorant.
Oh, really?
That's what nice was.
I'll be darned.
Sometimes it'll still be used in that sense without people meaning to. Is somebody will say, "Oh my goodness, isn't this great?" And they say, "Oh, that's nice." And that's closer to the original sense.
Okay.
Is plain and boring. Nice specifically relates to types of people, ignorant people. And it changed over time. When a person didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do, they were nice. Well, as that got more popular, nice also meant kind of shy or reserved, because you didn't just throw yourself out there and make yourself look foolish.
Okay.
So nice got a few more positive qualities. So it was nice that you weren't a blabbermouth. It was nice that you were not a fool. And then things evolved a little farther, and so nice got nicer.
Sure.
And so now nice is something positive, not amazingly so, but you know.
Yeah.
And so nice is a really good one. I always liked nice. The other one that has changed radically is when people are afraid, when people are really kind of jittery, you say they're nervous, which makes sense because people have nerves, and so when you're nervous, you're really nervy. Well, that one actually meant strong and vigorous. Like when a horse is getting ready to get in the race, and they're doing like this. Okay, they are nervous, or sometimes it's called nervous energy. So there's still some relations to that. But nervous used to be a really good thing. It meant strong and ready to go. Let's do this. And now it's also means fearful. It means uncertain.
Isn't that something? How that is just almost completely flipped.
They're almost opposite, yes. Mm-hmm. Nervous used to be a very positive, full of strength, ready to go. And, like they say, bred and bushy-tailed. Mm-hmm. That's nervous. Mm-hmm. And it also, simultaneously, means freaked out, weirded out, stressed out, and, about ready to run away. Because you just can't handle it. So, there are a lot of words that have changed over time. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. I've just always kind of made it a personal quest of mine that if there's anything that is significantly negative in language use that you can't discuss because it immediately upsets, angers,
right.
or, in some other way instantly blocks the communication, I've always made it a point to let people know things weren't always like this. And they don't have to be like this if you want to work a little more forward and positively.
All right. Thank you so much for being on Psychic Creations. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
We are going to ask Mark to come back next week and continue this fascinating subject of English language.